Hey guys, my name's JJ. I'm a photographer. I live in West Philly. I got my training right across the street over at the DP, among other things. Thanks so much for coming today. I think that art and activism is a really important combination and really worth discussing and promoting. I'm really sorry I can't be here in person, unfortunately, since arts and activism aren't always at our society's priority list. There's needs for day jobs to pay the bills, and I've actually got a gig across town shooting in Camden probably as we speak. So here I am talking to you about my photos via this stupid little teleconference video recording. So I'm not a great video producer, it's not my strong point, and I'm doing this kind of quickly, so I'll apologize, but let's take a look at some stuff. So I first started thinking about media and activism when I got involved with the Prometheus Radio Project. They're an organization based just here in West Philly that help people use low-power FM radio technology, which is really affordable and accessible. You can build it yourself. And setting up low-power community radio stations like the one we have here in West Philly, 88.1 WPAB. But they do this all over the country, and they help community groups find their own voices. And radio has been a really important tool, but every art, every media, anything you can make, whether it's a sign painted on cardboard or a video production or a photograph, this is the media that we're making, and it's how we're telling our stories, and it's really important in helping to change the world through the activism that we do. So working with Prometheus, I got to know the Coalition of Immokalee Workers. They're a farm worker organization based in southern Florida that helps organize for farm workers' rights. Most people don't realize that there's actually been cases of slavery prosecuted in southern Florida, and even in the average conditions, they're completely exploitative, where you have to pick about 2 tons worth of tomatoes in a day to make $50. That's a rate that hasn't been adjusted for inflation in the last 20-odd years. Most of these workers are anonymous folk. Some of them are immigrants, some of them are American citizens. All of them are treated pretty crappily and have to live like this in a trailer that's designed for one family but shared with 7 other people, depends, in really squalid living conditions. The rent is more expensive than I pay here in Philly because the same folks own all of the land. So the FBI has actually prosecuted several cases of slavery in southern Florida involving both citizens and immigrants under different circumstances. The most recent one last year involved workers that were actually chained up in U-Haul box trucks overnight. They were being forced to shower under cold hoses. They had no freedom to leave. People have been threatened, people have been beaten. And when you have exploitative labor conditions in general, when the whole industry revolves around really exploiting other human beings, then you end up in the situation where there are these excesses of actual outright cases of slavery. It's not something that's acceptable at all. A representative of the governor of Florida, who wouldn't even answer the questions himself, had said, "Oh, well, it's sure it's bad, but it's only like a case or 2 a year, as if that were acceptable, So I think that no slavery is acceptable, and the people who've been organizing and supporting the CIW think the same thing, and they've done an amazing job of using art to help achieve their goals. So I'm going to run you through a couple examples of some of the stuff that they do and what I've done with them in order to help tell their story and make some real change in the world. This is obviously a serious issue, but that doesn't mean that talking about it can't be any fun. And that's where the CIW have done a huge job of having a lot of fun, and their protests are these joyous celebrations with a lot of supporters and some beautiful artwork. I think there's some people here today from Spiral Q Puppet Theater, and they may or may not have already presented, but they are great at doing this here in Philly. And with a lot of support from musicians as well in helping to tell their story and enliven their protests and just draw attention of popular audiences to these important social issues. David Solnit is an artist based in California who helps support the CIW with his work. I'm going to show you a magic trick of his where he pulls a box truck out of a cardboard box that he's flown across the country for this particular protest. As I said, the most recent case of slavery prosecuted in Florida involved workers who were actually shackled up with chains and locked in a U-Haul type box truck overnight. This is something that you don't see every day, and it's mostly hidden away from our sight. So the question is, how do you bring that to the attention of people? And so working with a bunch of other volunteers and farm workers and their student supporters and other activists, they actually took the protests straight to the state capitol. When the governor refused to meet with them, they decided, okay, well, we're gonna show this issue, and we're gonna go and actually take this box truck and we're going to take it to the state capitol and set it up there and reenact what happened so that it can be clearly used to shame the governor into actually having to address this issue. So here's the truck that set the stage for the play that would happen the next day in Tallahassee. So the CIW converged on the Florida state capitol with their allies, and they held a press conference to pressure the governor to meet with them and to issue a statement saying that not one single case of slavery was acceptable. They had replicas of National Geographic expose on modern-day slavery and other publications highlighting these issues. But in addition to their points that they were speaking, they were having a slow-motion theater piece. This is this dramatic reenactment of the work in the fields and the details of the most recent case of modern-day slavery that has been prosecuted, where the workers were not just beaten, but also locked in this box truck at night. And so, as the speakers were speaking, this was going on, and it happened in slow motion, and it just happened over and over and over again. So it was this incredibly powerful effect for everyone gathered there, because you would watch it, and you'd get it, and then you'd go to paying attention to whoever was speaking at the podium, as the impassioned supporters were speaking. But then all of a sudden you'd realize, wait a second, my attention is strayed, but this is still going on. And that moment of realization when you turn and you see, oh, this abuse is just continuing to happen and continuing to happen and continuing to happen. That theater piece was immensely powerful. And what happened was, after seeing all of this, the amount of media coverage that it got, the next day, the governor's office was on the phone and was asking to meet with the coalition. Okay, so that's a start, but we've got a lot more that needs to change in the agricultural industry, not to mention the rest of the world. But you can see how much the art helps inform the activism with music that's enlivening protests. They also had folks like the crew from Rage Against the Machine writing some socially conscious lyrics that then helped convey these messages. In addition to music supporting visual art, like the signs at the protests and the creation of the box truck, etc., and then the theater piece coming through, and then you have other media like photos and videos documenting and helping share these stories. My next little favorite story comes a couple weeks ago, where I had some of these prints up at the White Dog Cafe for the last 2 months, and apparently a party of 7 walked in, and they were standing there waiting to be seated, and the guy looks at the wall and sees my photos with the captions telling these stories, and he gets livid. And it turns out, well, he says, I'm the biggest tomato grower in Florida, and he's the biggest tomato grower in California, and we don't have to put up with this bullshit. And they stormed out. And, you know, they may have been expecting criticism in protests in Florida, but they weren't expecting it to follow them and put them on the spot in front of their friends in a classy restaurant in Philadelphia. So that was kind of fun, and mission accomplished there. So there's a lot of what I try to do with my work is to empower the people who are doing this kind of work, because you saw a couple portraits thrown into the mix here. I think one of the most important things for me is to say that, you know, this work is important, and by doing a good job of documenting it and by taking good portraits of the people involved in doing this work, I help to value and kind of affirm and empower the work that they're doing. Because, you know, our media is built around this idea of some people are more important than others, and, you know, these are the Hollywood stars, and they're more photogenic than you are, and that's crap, right? Like, I get really upset about the idea that people aren't photogenic, because all of these folks are beautiful, and all you guys are beautiful, and all the more so when you're doing this kind of important work to change the world. There's a lot of people who aren't used to being well documented, and so it's a powerful thing when all of a sudden they see a beautiful portrait of themselves, because of course Hollywood isn't going to come and pay someone to take some nice portraits of the people out there in the streets fighting for a better world, because that's kind of just shake things up too much. But that's what I try to do, and then share the images back with the people doing this work to help them feel better about it. They already feel great about it, but it's that kind of memory and documentation adds value and helps share that story and helps share that excitement, and make it a more contagious thing that goes on. And now I'm just rambling, so I'm done here, but if you guys have any questions for me, again, I'm really sorry I can't be here in person today. I'll flash up my website here and my contact info. Feel free to drop me a line if you have any questions, or, you know, good luck in all of the arts and activism that you're off doing.